So today we're going to go over follow-on submissions for studies that are currently approved. So we're just going to dive right into the demo. Just a quick update that the communications are complete for the studies that are transitioning to the DHH IRB on July 1. So everyone should have received a notice that they have a study transitioning. And let us know if you have questions about that. Feel free to send us an email. Okay, so let's get started. You can go ahead and log in. So this is the main screen that you'll log in as a researcher. It will look a little bit different. There will be a DH logo there eventually. Oh, before we get too far, just to give you guys an update about what your login screen will look like. So when you log in, and you get to that screen Jocelyn just got to, there are going to be two options to log in. The option on the left side is going to be for existing Rapport users, so probably everybody in this room. So if you've previously submitted to CPHS and used your Rapport credentials, all your study records are tied to that. So please continue to use that option going forward. The option on the right-hand side of the screen will be specific to using Hitchcock credentials, and that will be for any new users who have never actually logged into the system, don't have any records associated in Rapport, and whether or not your college or DH, you would need to get new credentials to actually access our system. So just so you're aware, there's actually going to be two options on that login page. Please make sure you're using the Rapport option if you have anything currently in Rapport that are transitioning over, and continue to operate using those credentials come July 1. Okay? Sorry. All right, let's log in again. Okay, so this is probably going to be pretty similar to the Rapport system. So to access your currently approved studies, you're going to click this IRB button up here at the top. Then you have a couple areas here that you can choose from. To find your active studies, you're going to click the Active tab. We're going to go ahead and click this test study. And I'm going to start by submitting or creating a modification for a review of the IRB. Thank you for closing that. So just like Rapport, you'll see this button here on the left under Next Steps that says Create Modification /CR. And go ahead and click that. And then you have three options here. So this is where you'll submit modifications, continuing reviews, and study closures. If you're completing a continuing review or study closure, you'll click the continuing review button. For any modifications or updates, you'll go ahead and click the modification update button. And if you're submitting them at the same time, an extension of your project and a modification, you can click this combine button. We're going to go ahead and click just the modification button for now. You can see that two scopes show up for the modification. So study team member information and other parts of the study. Now, I don't know if Rapport has this. I think that they do, but there are little icons around here that will give you more information. This one, you should probably note that to change the PI, since that's attached to the basic study page, workflow page, you'll want to click the other parts of the study. All other study team member modifications will be done by clicking the study team member information. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click both so that you can see both of these pages show up. But if you clicked study team member information, just note that the only page you're going to see when you click next is going to be the study team member information page. Yes?
So more of a forthcoming report in your mind about what that look like. So I'm only in other parts of the study. I kind of get all the way through and I suddenly realize, oh my God, I have to. You can't really go back and change it and start a whole new thing. And I was wondering if you have a newer version of Report that's saying that. Or if you haven't tried it to find out.
Yeah, honestly, that's not something I've heard of a problem with other versions of the system. So typically this has to do with how the smart forms are, right? And so if you're saying other parts of the study, I would assume the study personnel page does also unlock, but if it doesn't, then it might be the case that you can do a browse right over. But I'm happy to test it.
Okay.
See if that's been fixed.
it seems, it's a nuisance because when you've got everything filled in.
You never put the copy.
I actually have to admit, I have not tried that, and I probably should be, but.
Yeah, so let's get back to that and just take
Yeah.
through the demo. But I did hear some folks earlier talking too about not wanting to close settings. They still have to redo all the rework should be able to reopen it or get new funding. The copy functionality in the system is something we should be using in those scenarios. And even when you withdraw a submission, there is the option of copy. And when you copy that, it should just copy everything that you've already created and just create the new submission. So we can come back to sort of, maybe we should do a session in July about tips and tricks. That might be helpful. And so we're happy to come back.
And we can test that later, and I can send you an email if you want to contact me afterwards. So, okay.
I suspect several other people in the room might.
Absolutely. And you can, I mean, the system does allow you to have one study team member modification and one other parts of the study modification open at the same time. So if you need to go back and submit them, you can go ahead and just submit the second mod. But I agree, that is a bit of a nuisance. So let's look into that.
I find it, even more if I start out with a continued and realize, oh, I can do a lot of things. Someone just called for me and said, oh, did you know that we're putting on a new study member? And it's even worse trying to go back to this. But again,
Right.
copy function works.
Yep.
We'll learn something new.
Okay, let's go ahead and click continue now that we've clicked the modification scope. And in this case, it's going to unlock all of the smart forms that you should be able to see. But first, it's going to ask for modification information. So you'll ask to update your study enrollment status and notification of subjects. Note that neither of these are required. There's no asterisk that says. Sure. Is that easier? Okay, great. Okay, so neither of these are required, but please enter this information if it's relevant for your study. I'm going to go ahead and say that no subjects have currently been enrolled, because in this modification, I'm just going to be updating my recruitment flyer. And we're not going to notify any subjects, so I'm not going to enter anything in this number 2. And so for the summarized modification, again, there's this little help text that can explain what should be included in your modification. So brief overview of the study modifications here. So I'm going to go ahead and say, adding recruitment. I'll go ahead and click continue. Now we'll start taking me through the original smart form pages. So here's the basic study information page. I'm not actually going to be changing anything here, but you do have the ability, all of these options are able at this point in time to be edited, except for this button right here, the external IRB act as the IRB of record for this study, which in that case, we don't want that to change anyway. But you can add a new protocol if necessary. You can go ahead and jump to different pages. So since I'm not changing much, I could just go ahead and jump to the local site documents page. Go ahead and do that. What I'm going to do is go ahead and add additional recruitment materials. If I were changing this one, so if this weren't an additional recruitment material that I was adding, you could go ahead and click the update button. And again, it's just going to choose the file and it's going to replace this version with the last version. I'm going to go ahead and add a new one in this case.
Jocelyn,
Yep.
where these non-technical summaries?
Sorry?
The non-technical
Other attachments page. Yep, right here. Yeah, so consent forms, recruitment materials, and other attachments will all now be located in this local sites document page for single site studies. So that is a slight change from the current version of Rapport. So let's go ahead and add the recruitment file. You can give it a name and you can give it a version number as well. Otherwise, it will just default.
Now you can see it's added. So I'm going to go ahead and click continue. I think I'm at the end of my smart form pages. So I'm going to go ahead and click finish. Now, well, I'm actually going to zoom out a little bit if that's okay, just so you can see the whole page. Is that still viewable to everybody? Okay. So now you can see the modifications and pre-submission at this point in time. Now you still have the manage ancillary review function if you need it here for modifications. You can also add comments. We talked about this already, but since we won't have the notify PI button, this may be an area where you can notify the PI that something needs their attention. And you can click this number 3 for who should receive an email notification, and the PI proxy, and primary contact can all receive an email notification of your comments and just say, you know, ready for submission to be hired. So that was a customization that TPHS had in Rapport. So that's not part of the base product. So.
Really quick update here, just because what Jocelyn was showing, and I had literally just talked to Lee about this. So we're going to maybe talk about this. We are not going to require PI. Actually, I'm just comfortable with that, so don't worry about it.
Okay. All right, go ahead and add that comment. You can see that that comment, just like Rapport, will show up in the history. So right there. Again, we don't recommend that you use comments to talk to the IRB office. Feel free to send us an email, but any sort of official documentation we'd like either in the submit or in other areas, pretty much in the smart forms or in the requested clarification function that we went over last time. So, yeah.
So when you add comments, say to send something on the PIC, the notification that assuming it's an email, does it include that is the comment, or does it just tell them to log into the system?
Just tells them to log into the system.
Does that have a link that works correctly?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. An interesting function too that you might want to use, especially if there are multiple people looking at the submission all at the same time to see if there are different edits that need to be made, is this view differences tab right here. So if you click on this, it'll show you exactly what is changed and exactly what pages. So it'll only show you the smart form pages that have been edited. So in this case, it shows exactly where my recruitment materials have been edited. So just an FYI that you might want to use that if there are multiple people, just to make sure that you're updating all of your documents and all of your documents have been updated and added into the modification. And then just like normal, we'll just go ahead and click submit. You can see that it was in the pre-submission stage, and now it's going to move into the pre-review stage, which means it's under IRB review. So it'll go from this little bubble right here to this pre-review bubble right here. Click OK.
We were talking about potentially also changing the staff members.
Correct, yeah.
Have you, I didn't see your last presentation. First presentation, the list of I guess were the package from the report wasn't mentioned very well for a lot of us in terms of what our titles and descriptions and whatnot are here, and I'm wondering if that's been updated yet.
We are updating in the, we're adding our study team member.
And you say what their role is.
So I don't think that we have all of them in here right now. This is all that we have. If you have specific roles, let us know. We can see what we can do. You know, we are a week before go live, so.
Well, we certainly need research nerds in there.
Yeah, we do know that's on our list.
So we took the same list that's in the board to add to this.
Okay.
So
Oh, yeah,
that's just
all the ones
base
from
product.
CPHS report will be in there.
Everything that was in the
Mhm.
report will be
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I apologize I didn't show you this, but it's the same function if you were to add a study team modification. So you go to the local site study team member page, and you can add identify. So this would be internal people would be added here. And number 1, I could just add. I'm just going to add one of the test cases here. Consent, yes. They have a financial interest. No. Okay. You can also add external team member information here. Please also add their training information as well. Any other information there, Candy? Okay.
No.
Okay. And not DH or the college.
Is that for like kids that we have people who work at Dartmouth-Hitchcock shows up under Dartmouth-Hitchcock, they want local team members?
So let me ask you a question with that. Would they be somebody who has DH coming from?
Then no local.
Okay. I want to make sure that add all of them in there. So yeah, they're not.
Any other questions? I'm gonna go ahead and save and exit. And then we'll just go ahead and submit this again. And then we'll start going over continuing reviews. But I do want to show you how the workflow here changes. So now you see it's in pre-review. Now you see it's in pre-review right here. That means that it's now under IRB review. You can also see in the study that it's been submitted here. So that's your indication that now it's time for us to look at it. So any questions about this before we move on to continue reviews? Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and submit a continuing review then. I'm going to go back up. I'm going to go ahead and navigate back to my inbox because that's what you're going to see when you log in. So let's just say I'm logging in again. It'll default to my inbox. Click the IRB tab. All studies that are active are going to show up in the active list. If you scroll down, we'll choose. Let's do this one. And same process, I'm going to go ahead and click this create modification / CR. CR is obviously continuing review. Click that. So what is the purpose of this submission? Again, these little help bubbles are helpful to tell you exactly which you should be submitting if you need help with that. So for study closures or extensions, we're going to choose a continuing review. Now, based on the research milestones that you choose in your continuing review, it may be time for the IRB to go ahead and close your study. So click the continue review. And we'll go ahead and enter our subjects enrolled totals. So at our investigator sites, go ahead and do 25. Since last approval, I last had approval from the IRB, so say I just enrolled 5. And study-wide, let's say there's 50 at all of the sites.
Last continue review?
Yes. Last continue review. Let's go ahead and look at our research milestones. So you'll see this note again if the first 4 research milestones above are complete. Can you see this okay, or do I need to zoom in a little bit? Okay, that better? Yeah, okay. So if the first 4 research milestones are complete, the study will be closed to discontinue IRB oversight. Just be aware of that. Sorry?
You select those.
Oh, yeah. I acknowledge that the study will be closed. So we'll tell you again. It will give you multiple notices there. Let's just go ahead and say though that the study's permanently closed enrollment, but all the other are not met yet. So do any of the investigators have a financial interest related to the research? Go ahead and say no. And so check the items that are true since the last IRB approval for all sites involved in this study. So we'll go ahead and click these because we haven't had any unanticipated events. We're just going to go ahead and say that no subjects have withdrawn, and click those all. Now, if any of these are unchecked, so let's say you did have some subjects that did withdraw from your study, you would go ahead and in number 5 here, attach the supporting documents and explain why that item is unchecked. So, any questions about that?
So right now, even if we check all of those, it's a bit of supporting document.
No supporting document. Nope. No continuing review supporting document anymore. We're not going to have additional forms. So you'll only submit things if one of the items in number 4 is not true. So you did not check one of those items.
This, a Word document that elaborates on why or not selected. If helpful, we can create a template Word document. But what we want to avoid is creating an extra form that you guys fill out every year that really you don't have to. So we can create a template if that's helpful, but otherwise it's only going to be required. Keep in mind if not a firm one.
Same with modifications too. We're not requiring an additional form for modifications. So no additional forms there. Unless obviously you need to elaborate on something or new documents need to be posted or uploaded, but no modification form. Okay, so if you did need to add something, again, this is the same type of attachment format here. You just choose the file that you want and then go ahead and click OK. Clicking continue. And that's it. That's all the continuing review smart forms. Go ahead and click finish. And zoom out just a little bit. And again, you can see it's in pre-submission here. You still have the manage ancillary review function, the add comment. You can also discard it if you need to as well. And it's also in pre-submission here in the workflow. So we'll go ahead and click submit. Click OK.
I have a navigation question.
Yep.
Right now, when you're on, it may just be how you've got your screen.
Sure.
You showed up there. Right now, if I'm on this page here, I can with a single click actually go back to the point where I've gone to the history of the study.
Right.
Not the history of the submission, but the study.
Okay.
But I'm looking like maybe I can't do that, but maybe there's something about the navigation.
Right. So this actually has changed a little bit here. So you see these 2 arrows right here. So if you click those down, you can see the title of the study. You click on that, that'll take you back to the full study history here. So you can also see all of your follow-on submissions here as well. So if you have some open, like we just submitted this continuing review, you can see what state it's in. That's all going to show up here in these follow-on submissions. So any modifications, CRs, R&Is are going to show up here. It will only show the currently approved documents. So if you have new documents that are being reviewed, those won't show up here until they're approved. So, what you can see is snapshots. So if you click one of these snapshots, you can go back to a previous, when the study was in pre-submission, when it was approved. You can go back to previous versions of the submission if you need to go back and see a previous version of a document. Okay. Any other? Yeah.
Here's the plan. Does that mean you require a template or is that
So if I'm going to create it, I'm going to require it. So we all ask for it. So because then what that'll do is make the information in the form as requested and then as provided to the IRB. It also helps us on the receiving end, make sure we're getting information all the time. But what I will say is that what I'm going to do is design it in a special way that says if you haven't said yes, you want to be more elaborate, and then I actually information you want to provide. But yeah, I think we'll require it if we're going to create it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the issue.
Again, that'll only be required if you cannot have one of those things. So I don't want to see that form submitted. I don't want you to have to do the work with it. If everything there is yes and it's okay.
Yeah.
Yes, at least for the purpose of all of this is only give me information where we and not have you filling out information in multiple different places.
Okay. Any other questions about that? Just a note, once the study's been submitted, once the CRs have been submitted, I know probably most of you know this, they will no longer show up in your inbox until there's some sort of action that is required by you or the study team. So if you want to find the study and see what sort of state it's in, where it's at in the IRB process, you can click this IRB link up here, and all of your in-review items are going to show up in this in-review tab. So right here, you can see that continuing review that I just submitted. Okay, it's still in pre-review, or now it's been assigned to a board meeting, so it's an IRB review process. So you can sort of see that too, and you can click on it here at any point in time. But it's not going to show up in your inbox unless some sort of clarification is requested, action happens, or if it's in the pre-submission state, it will show up in your inbox as well. If some sort of action is needed from you, that's the only time that something shows up in your inbox. Okay. Let's go ahead and do the R&I process. Candy, do you want to assist with this? So you can, yeah. So you can see that the report new information button shows up in a couple different places. It'll show up in your inbox right here. First thing you can see. It'll also show up here. If you go into your study, so let's just go ahead and click on one too. Oh, I probably need an approved one. So let me show up here. Just kidding. I need an approved one. If you go to the actual study too, there will be an option for an R&I as well, a report new information. So you can find this at any point in time. If you click on it here in your inbox, you will be able to link your study to it. You don't need to go into the study page if you don't want to. So click report new information.
Okay, so R&I short title, this is, just how you can quickly identify it in their inbox or in your inbox when it's under review. Date you became aware of the information. This is important, so it may not be the date you're submitting, the date you all or the study team found out about the event.
So, sorry to interrupt. If the past, I got was that not a mistake aware. They may not be the date, but
That's fair. That's fair. The way we should talk about that field is really what was the date the study team. I don't care who on the study team, the first date we knew this event happened. So it says you became aware because you're submitting, but fair point. If it was known earlier to the study team, we want to make sure we reflect it there.
is there a way to customize to have like a little information icon to make that more clear there for people?
We cannot add help text at this point, but we can put a placeholder to see if that's something we can add when we upgrade in the fall.
Might help with that.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I can do, even though I can't change the system, is we can create an FAQ on how to actually submit an R&I. So even though it's not right there in the system, we can at least have some help text for you, or an FAQ for you. All right. So identify the categories that represent the new information. And we're saying check all that apply. Thank you, because even I can't see it.
I know, it's tiny. Better, can some of you at least see a little bit of it? Okay.
So in question 3, we want to know if it's a new or increased risk or a safety issue. And what A through, if we scroll down, I can't remember if it's here. What A through F are just examples, right? So there's one tick box. Here are the different examples of why it could be a new or increased risk. Scroll down. Is it a harm that's unexpected or probably, at least probably related to the research? And then A and B are just examples or helping to define what we're asking for here. And then it gets into other categories of information that we want to see reported. So non-compliance, maybe we have an audit or a report that needs to be provided to us promptly. Any sort of researcher error, breaches of confidentiality, an unreviewed change. So if something happened and the protocol wasn't followed and you didn't get prospective approval for that change, you need to let us know. If a subject winds up in prison and we weren't approved to enroll with prisoners in research, we need to know. Complaints of a subject. We might be the ones to fill this out related to a study if we get the participant complaint. And then we have suspensions or termination of the research, and then unanticipated adverse device effects. So these are the categories of information we want to see reported to the IRB. If you can zoom out a little bit. So what this note will say at the bottom is that if the information does not fit one or more of those categories, don't tell us as new information. What we want you to do then is tell us at the time of continuing review that something has happened. But we don't want to know about it. We don't need to know it. By regulation, you don't have to tell us immediately, right? So it doesn't meet the prompt reporting requirements. That's not to say we won't accept it, and it's fine for you all to err on the side of caution, and I'll show you why that is. What we want to do is make sure you guys are reporting as required, not over-reporting, and certainly not under-reporting. But these are really the categories we want to stick to. And then we have a brief description section. So whatever you are checking above to tell us has happened, please include a brief description so we understand what.
So if it doesn't meet one of those criteria, so what I normally do is I hear something, I'm like, oh, is it reportable? And I'm kind of questioning it. I'll usually just call and ask, here's what happened, do you think that, should we report it now, or, don't do that? Or,
You can call and ask, but I'm going to be really honest. I would prefer that we err on the side of putting it in the system, and I'll show you why. The other thing we want to get away from is you and I have a phone call. There's no record of that. And I don't want you in a situation where you say the IRB didn't tell me to, and I don't want me in a situation where I said I didn't tell her to, but I don't have a record. And then we wind up in trouble. And because the feds always say that we need to document all correspondence related to the study file, let's just get it in the system. That said, I'm not saying I won't offer advice, but the system is really where we want to make sure we're recording everything, right?
where would we ask that? And would we just submit it and then
You can call me. You can still call me. But what I'm saying is I really prefer that we start doing this in the system. And now if you're just asking for advice in general on reporting, and I'm not sure if it meets this, I think that's good. Let's have those conversations. But let's just start getting all. And I think one of the ways that this works is that it winds up becoming a training tool. You're telling me, and then I say this actually doesn't meet the reporting requirements, and now you have a determination from us that says that. That's where I want to start going with this. Okay. We've talked through the categories, we've got the description, and then it talks about in the submitter's opinion, and is it a new or increased risk or safety issue? Does the study need revision? Does the consent form need revision? And again, this is your opinion. So you guys can say no to all of this, and when we get it in, we're gonna say, actually you need a mod, submit the mod. But if you don't think so off the bat, that's fine, just tell us. It's not a quiz, but we can always come back and say, yes, you actually do need to make changes. And then it does prompt you to submit a modification if revisions are required. So question 6 gets into related studies and modifications. So let's say you created the modification first. You can link it here. You can link to a study here. You can also link to multiple studies. So that's why the R&I form is set up in this way. Let's say you find out information about a drug and it's applicable to multiple studies that you're responsible for. You can link all of them here. No, the system is. So yes, use this to link studies, but if you know it's related to just one specific study, like Jocelyn showed earlier, you can go right into the study record and report the new information. It'll link automatically. Then any files containing supporting information. So you got a Dear Investigator letter, You have some other information from the sponsor that's helpful. You can attach it here.
So I have an essay in the first year.
Mhm.
I'm going to use the R5 one. Yes.
Depends.
And it needs to-
If it's new and increased risk. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we're saying, okay, good. Okay. Yes. Nope, that's good. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I have other studies. I don't have an essay. I honestly have. But you know, that's those things. About
Sure.
Would you rather have the longer description here, or would you rather have that in a Word document that I attach and just really one paragraph here?
Yeah, I actually like that suggestion of having the brief description remain the brief description, and then you can always say in there, see the longer description in the attached Word document. The thing I like about that is, let's say we need to start now working in that Word document, and I would say to you, okay, well, can you revise this Word document to now tell me X, Y, and Z? Then we can start working within that Word document and track changes versus editing stuff in the system that, even though we can still see the changes you make, it's probably easier to manage in that Word document. So I'll defer to you all on what makes sense in the event. And I do like the idea of keeping the brief description brief, and you guys can elaborate in a separate Word document if that's helpful. Great. You're in the pre-submission state. You can go ahead and submit. Well, we actually don't even need to submit the R&I. So the next thing I just want to show you is the workflow diagram changes. Okay, so normally we have all of these loops, right? Now what we have with R&Is are loops here that get us all the way to review complete. So what can happen, and to your point, you submit something to me, you're like, oh, I'm not really sure, but I'd rather just be careful and submit. If it doesn't meet those criteria for reporting, me in the office will say, oh, no, boom, and it's going to go right to review complete. And so you will get a notification at that point that it's complete, but there's no further action required. This is meant to help us speed up the process and just say, thanks, we don't need to actually do anything with it. Now, we can also send it to IRB review, and so either maybe our chairs would look at it, or we might have to send it to a convened meeting. If it goes to that route, they also have the same, I call it the ditch out mechanism, where it can just go to review complete. We don't have to go through the process of finalizing documents, sending letters. So it helps us be a little bit more efficient on our side, while still allowing you all to give us the information. But it gives us a couple of ways to be a little bit more quick about how we manage it. But I don't want to go through showing you our side. That doesn't really make sense. I just think the workflow probably gives you the information that you need.
So if we would go from that to right to the you have to need to, is that where you tell us, like, you don't need to know it now, but or with that?
So we'll always say, tell us at continuing review. So let's say there's deviation or some events that have occurred throughout the course of the study. Wow, probably doesn't mean a whole lot, but at the time of continuing review, now that we see all this information compiled, it could tell us something. So that's where we would want to see it at the time of continuing review. Now, no, that's okay. Court. Now, what I would like to do, because we're sort of getting into a new era with this sort of stuff, is Jocelyn and I and everybody on our team should really be in the point of educating. So why did it kick to that end state? And if we need you to report it at continuing review, we're going to let you know.
So if she submitted something and it's not really meeting the criteria and went straight to review, I guess I'm just, you still want it to be listed in during the continuing review, or you'll let us know if you want it.
We'll let you know, but I think what could wind up happening is that thing happens 5 more times before continuing review, and then maybe is it some sort of event that does increase risk and harm. So that's where like your internal study records may start to prompt you to report something to us. Now it's rising to the level. And then at the time of continuing review, it's helpful for us to know what is happening with the study, because if there's something that's sort of looks a little off, we want to know about it.
You know, when you want to submit a continuing review, you just want us to put together a Word document that lists events or
What do
and how
you-
much information do you usually.
Yeah. What are you typically submitting just now as far as sort of minor needs?
They have a form, you fill it in on the form, something like and for the OCR, things that we don't report every title thing, like because deviation could be they took blood pressure on a different arm and that. So for us, we kind of consider anything that meets 2 out of 3 kind of criteria of being like almost reportable, but you're not quite reportable, and so that kind of triggers us to add it to a list for continuing review. But yeah, it's part we just end up adding up to the form.
Okay. So then I think what we'll do is we'll look at the forms that have and make sure that it's that we want to see. Yeah. Okay, we have 2 minutes left.
Do you know if the approval letters for say modifications will specify what the IRB believes to be considered for reconsent?
Oh, if you need to reconsent with us.
So it'll say on there, because currently CBHS has us tell them what our plans are for reconsent, and if they agree, they just don't say anything. So and that can kind of get a little confusing, yeah. So if you guys think reconsent, do we have to tell you what say sponsors require reconsent, or you guys just gonna say, oh, this is gonna need reconsent, and so as far as the IRB is concerned, you do.
So I don't want to be in. So if your sponsor is saying reconsent is required, we want you to tell us. I don't think we're going to get this sponsor. They're saying it's fine. I mean, probably not always correct, but so no, we need you to tell us first. So I think in the R&I process, our 2% required, or the modification process we just talked about is, are you going to notify subjects of this change? If it's yes, that doesn't mean reconsent, right? It might mean a letter. So we need to know what your plan is. And I don't want to, the IRB's job is not to do it. You tell us your plan is, and we can say whether or not that's acceptable based on the level of risk and what's happening, right? But your research, tell us what your plan is.
But the letter will say whether or not it's required for that.
We can have that if that's something that sponsors.
More and more they are asking for it to be clear from the IRB.
So here's the difference though, is if you tell us it's going to obtain consent again, fine. We're not saying it's required, that's your plan. So I think maybe Courtney might want to talk about it, because what is it that you're actually looking for? Because if you're saying IRB is requiring it, that's very different than the IRB just whoever told us you're going to do. So I want to make sure we're really clear. So in an event scenario, we're saying that is required. Your letter would absolutely, as a result of us reviewing that.
Yeah.
So I think that's maybe a little bit different. So happy to keep talking about that.
Courtney and I do work in the same office. Where I've occasionally run into things where I really want the IRB to make a recommendation. Will be if the sponsor is favoring reconsent for somebody other than an active treatment. And our PIs rarely are in active treatment, but they sometimes will disagree with what the sponsor wants when we get off of active treatment. those instances, we really are looking at the IRB to weigh in on one side or the other, whichever it is.
How do you normally communicate that to the IRB? Because I don't know that I would know how to weigh in.
I think I've done it a couple of different ways, honestly.
Okay.
I think I have sometimes put it in that mod description field and said sponsor request, disagrees, please comment. Or I think I have put it in the comment field at the front of the mod. And just say, I probably can describe it why there, but I would say, please comment on your.
Sure. I think as long as you provide us with a trigger that tells us we need to consider something else, but I would say if the sponsor requires one thing and your study team disagrees, you're going to have to tell us why. So it's still on you all to provide the rationale for why you think your process for consent or informing subjects is more appropriate than what the sponsor is recommending, and then we can actually consider what it is.
It's one of the problems that it's easy for them if they just require consent.
Oh, yeah.
Every participant, regardless of where they are.
Yeah.
And so we'll have patients in long-term follow-up only. It's not appropriate to be notifying them of changes that don't apply to them for the sponsor and saying they require. And so we can tell them, oh, we don't plan on doing this, but a lot of the times they are asking us to have that confirmed by the IRB is acceptable.
So, I think that's okay. And I think what that means is they've given you a plan, you disagree. The onus is still on you all to say, then what is your plan? And the IRB can approve it. I don't want the IRB in the business of giving you a plan. That's not our job.
So if we said, for instance, like, I does not plan to pre-consent participants because they are in long-term follow-up, it's not applicable.
Yeah.
You know, or does not plan to notify them someone.
Just tell us. And if then we look at the regs and say, based on the risk-benefit ratio and what that ethical thing is to do with this, I guess we can say, yeah, your plan is fine. This makes sense. This aligns with the regs. If what the sponsor's asking for is over and above with no rationale, then we can accept your plan. And the reason I say it's not the IRB's job, I'm not trying to not our job it. I'm trying to say, we're here to approve what you guys are trying to do or help you get to the right answer. We don't want to create your research or your plan for you.
So give you our plan, not necessarily sponsors' plan. Because ours is the same as the sponsors. So
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
That's
So
right.
if our plan is different, to tell you what our plan is, you guys can, determine whether.
Yeah. And we can also have a conversation and say, okay, well, you say this, the sponsor says this. What about this middle ground? Is that a solution? Or the board feels this is a better solution for this cohort, right? So it just depends. But as long as you give us a plan and not just say, sponsor says A, we disagree, and say, well, give us a better plan then so we can evaluate it. Yeah.
What is the new IRB's physical address?
One Medical Center Drive.
Okay.
Yeah, just keep using this address.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, team. We've got a few more days before go live, so if our hair starts on fire, you'll know why.